Hello there and welcome to episode 100 of Little Big Knits. My name is Selma, I'm your host, and today I am coming to you with something a little different. We are going to focus on the Ranunculus Sweater, which I have made 10 versions of, 2 of which were gifts. So I'm going to share my 8 versions with you today, one of which is actually still a whip. I expected it to be finished, but I'll be sharing with you my contemplations with my most recent ranunculus a little bit later on. So I just wanted to dedicate an episode to this pattern because I get so many comments on the ranunculus. I've made many of them, so it's very clear that it's a pattern that I enjoy. And people have been asking me to see my ranunculus sweaters, so I thought, let's just do it, and here we are. Now, I did want to mention that interestingly, I had been thinking about doing this for the last couple of months, and just when I was thinking about doing it, Casey of Young Folk Knit contacted me and asked me if she could use a picture of one of mine in an episode she was going to do on the ranunculus. I said, well, isn't this interesting? I'm thinking about doing one as well. So if you are feeling like being really saturated with ranunculus information, please feel free to go and check Casey's episode out. I will link it down below so that you can check her episode about modifications to the ranunculus that one can do. You'll see some of the modifications that I've done or the modifications that I've done, but those are not all the modifications that exist out there. So you can check hers out, and as well as check projects out on Ravelry. With looking up the Ranunculus Sweater, you can see the 24,500 and something projects that there are of this pattern on Ravelry. Of course, there are some that are not on there. And then there are going to be some that are on Instagram using the hashtag Ranunculus Sweater. There will also be some probably on the internet. And I think Midori Hirose, who is the designer of this pattern, I think she has a website as well. So she may have some on there. I'm not 100% sure. So my first ranunculus was made in 2018. This pattern came out in 2017 and it became popular instantly. As I said, this is a design by Midori Hirose, and you'll see some of the original sweaters that were part of the pattern, the pattern display on Ravelry. And I have to say that I did not take to this immediately. I did not think at first that it was a particularly nice pattern. I didn't really see myself making it, but as I saw people making it, I started really liking it. And it's very, very clear that people have made it with a variety of yarns and a variety of weights. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. The original pattern was only one size, but eventually, I think with the popularity of it and probably with the demand, the designer created 11 sizes ranging from 46 inches to almost 71 inches in final measurements. It's an interesting design in the sense that it lends itself to a variety of yarns. The gauge is supposed to be 14 stitches. I have to say, I've never measured the gauge on my ranunculus sweaters. I cannot tell you what my gauge is. I suppose I could measure each and every one of them at this point. But what I really like about the ranunculus sweater, and I think what lends to its versatility, is that you can knit it with a variety of gauges and with a variety of combinations of yarns, whether it be like in the pattern, a fingering weight alone, which makes a very gauzy version, or like this, a pure linen version. But people have also used worsted yarns. They've used unspun yarns such as Plotulopi or Nutidin yarn. They've used DK. They've used fingering with mohair. They've used pure silk. It's just been made in so many different yarns and so many different versions. And you can just look up like what have people used and look up the ones that you like. And it's been made in such a variety of ways. And I think that's one of the best things about it, really, and one of the reasons of its popularity is that it's not meant to fit a particular way. So you can knit a variety of different versions, and because it's meant to be sort of a loose-fitting, easy-flowing pattern with a loose gauge, it's fast, and it's just an easy-wear sweater. People have made it to be just a light, gauzy thing to wear on top of something else, but people have also made it with thicker yarn at a tighter gauge to be a more opaque sweater. And it's meant to be knit on 6mm needles, which I think is a US 10, but people have knitted on smaller needles as well as larger needles, but smaller needles to render something that's a little smaller, especially if you're a smaller person, or you're wanting something that's a little more close fitting. The construction of this sweater is what is also another thing that I really like about it, in that it is a top-down sweater where you start with a twisted rib, which I never have used. I don't believe, I think I may have used it in one sweater perhaps, but I'm not a huge fan of twisted ribs. So I've usually just cast on the 60 stitches. I haven't done the fancy cast-ons that are mentioned in the pattern, but it's constructed top-down with yoke and raglan, and I think that that's just actually a very nice fitting construction. Sometimes yoke alone or raglan alone can create a lot of bunched up fabric here, but I find that when you do yoke with some raglan, it tends to fit really nicely. And so I think that's also another aspect of that even though it is a very loose, sort of not particularly what's the word, fitted sweater or structured sweater is what I want to say, it fits very nicely. And I think that lends itself to the nice fitting aspect of it. It also has short row shaping in the back and in the front, which is also an unusual feature and creates a little bit more of a boat neck. If this didn't have the short row shaping in front, it would have come down a little bit more. Sometimes you can omit the short row shaping to have it come down a little bit more. People have done that as well. They've kept the short row shaping in the back, but omitted it from the front. And I have one version like that, which I'll show you as well. It's also a pattern that has, the original pattern has where you just literally cast off, you don't even do ribbing, and it's cropped and it's meant to be made with one skein of fingering weight yarn. But I've added ribbing to my short sleeved ones. Other people have added ribbing. They've made, sort of elbow length, 3/4 length, bracelet length, long sleeve lengths. The pattern has both the short sleeves and the long sleeves, and the long sleeves have some short row shaping here, as well as an I-cord finish that's really lovely. And I've done that on, I would say, the majority of my Ranunculus sweaters, but we'll look at that as well. And the length is meant to be cropped, but people have made it a more sort of traditional length sweater where it comes down to your hips. I've even seen a couple of dress versions of this pattern. You could very, very easily make it a dress. And I thought it could be quite nice to have quite an airy version. If you had a nice sort of slip dress to put it over, that could be really, really lovely. And I really would like to make a dress like that, not necessarily the Ranunculus, but the Ranunculus could lend itself quite nicely to something like that. Right. So, as I said, the yarn choices make a huge impact, and we're going to be looking at the ones that I've made. I have always made either the original, which was a one size, or size 2 and 3, except for one version, which I made a size 1 because I realized that I was playing yarn chicken and it was going to be a little wide. But generally I've made either size 2 or 3. And because the pattern starts pretty much the same way for everybody, you don't have to make the decisions about the size you're going to make until you get to this point. And then you can just follow one of the sizes, and chances are it's going to look great. So there you go. One last little thing is that the pattern has some interesting techniques. This one in here in particular, this is an increase here that's done over 2 rows. Is that right? I believe so. And all the techniques that are used in this sweater, the designer has video tutorials for. So it's a very well supported pattern. So even though I would say it's maybe not like your first sweater that you would make if you're a fairly new knitter, but it could easily be your 3rd sweater. If you have quite a bit of experience knitting different types of things, it could be your 1st sweater. And because it's airy and gauzy, it doesn't use up a lot of yarn and it goes quickly. So you'd learn quite quickly whether this was a good design for yourself or not. All right, let's start talking about my versions of this pattern. As I said, my love affair with the Ranunculus started in 2018. So the first version that I made thinking, am I ever going to wear this? But I really wanted to make it. And I have to say that I wore it so much that I realized fairly soon after that I probably wanted a second one. And then it just kept on going because then I wanted another one and then I wanted another one. So I think I'm getting close. I think I'm getting close to the end of my Ranunculus, or the Ranunculus reign in my knitting life. I do want one more at the moment. That would be a very woolly one. I have one that's sort of semi-woolly one, but I'd like one that was really kind of something that I'd wear around a campfire, made with something like plotulopi, held with mohair. That would be a little bit of a tighter gauge to it, or a little bit more opaque. And that's something that I'm thinking about. So maybe there'll be an 11th one in my future, but we'll see. All right, let's go back though to 2018, and I made my first one. As you can see in the pictures or in the video that I'm going to share with you now, that it is fairly cropped. It's 10 inches, including the ribbing at the bottom, which is about 2 inches. And I did do the I-cord edging on the sleeves on this one, kind of a 3/4 length. I really, really loved this one. I wore it a lot with a pink floral blouse that I have with one of my knit skirts actually, and tights and boots. Was just a great top that I wore it with a floral top that I have, but I also wore it with a sort of a charcoal or light, kind of a black, fairly transparent and polka dotted blouse that I have. And I've just worn this one so much. It's this kind of a mauve color that ended up being far more versatile than I thought it would be. And this one just sits so beautifully, and it almost looks like it flares out a bit, although it is totally knit straight. I used as the base yarn for this Wollmeise lace garn that I had been given by my friend Dana in Germany. And then I found some Fleece Artist Zambesi, which is a mohair silk base, and I put them together. The Wollmeise was more of a purpley yarn, and the Zambesi was a little bit more on the brown mauve side, and it just created this very lovely color, and it's just stayed really nicely. The I-cord is brought in by doing knit 2, knit 1, knit 2 together, knit 1, knit 2 together, knit 1, and really reducing the size or the number of stitches, and then doing an I-cord there. The original pattern has short rows on the sleeve, which I've never done. And I was thinking about doing it this time that I'm on the one that I'm working, but I've decided I don't think I will, but it's really fun. So yeah, this was number 1, a 1x1 rib, not twisted, all of the different versions, longer sleeved, and as I said, 10 inches in total. Just for your reference, I am 5'3", 5'3", so I'm quite short, and what is that in centimeters? 1.63 m or 64, something like that. So 10 inches is not terribly cropped. For me, a 13-inch sweater is definitely like a long sweater, full down to sort of like lower hip area. So that was 2018, Ranunculus number 1. I then really wanted to have another one because I loved wearing that one for work. I thought, oh, I'd love to have a beautiful silver gray one. So I proceeded to make a silver gray one, but the yarn behaved differently than I expected it to. The second one that I made, which I'll show you in the video here, is a much looser looking sweater. It was very drapey, a looser gauge, very evidently looser gauge. And despite the fact that it didn't actually turn into the sweater that I expected it to be for work, I have worn this one probably the most of all of my sweaters because this one has become my sweatshirt. I wear it, in a more casual setting. I'll wear it when I'm at a cottage, when I'm camping, at home over my pajamas or my nightie. This is the one that I go for all the time. And what I love about this one is that it is very airy, but also just lightly warm. So when I just want that little bit of warmth, I put this on. And this one was made out of yarn that is discontinued, unfortunately. It's by Ancient Arts, who are here in Western Canada, and it's their Indulgence base, which is a primarily silk base and linen. I think it was 65 silk, 35 linen. But unlike the yarns that are out that are using that combination, this one is a little bit more rustic feeling and a very hard yarn. Like you cannot break it with your hands. However, it's got a lot of drape to it. And then I mixed it with a mohair silk base. So there's a lot of silk in this one with some linen and a little bit of mohair. Quite a bit of mohair, but it's not a very, very woolly one. So it's just lightly warm. And I think the fact that it has such a high silk content, that really lent to the very, very airiness of this one. But as I said, it didn't turn out like I expected it to, which was more like my first one and that I would wear it to work, but it's become the sweatshirt that I want to wear all the time. I'm a little concerned about the shape of this one. I can see that it's wearing out under the arms. The mohair is kind of disappearing. And so I'm hoping to recreate this at some point. We'll see. But I still wear it all the time because I absolutely, absolutely love it. So that was number 2. I did the same thing with the sleeves for this one, where I did a decrease row and the I-cord bind off, but you can see that even though the stitch count is the same, that there is quite a difference in the finished version. So it just speaks to the fact that this yarn just spread and stretched, and I did not really account for that. But I was, as I said, okay with that. Slightly disappointed at first because I was hoping to be able to wear it at work, but I've worn it so much that it's been great. The next one I made, and before I show you anything, I want to show you the original project picture that I have on Ravelry. This one was made in 2021, and this is out of Americo Brizo, which is a discontinued yarn as well. Americo was out of Toronto. She would import yarns from Peru. And this was made out of a bamboo alpaca chainette yarn. So it's that chainette construction that tends to create a very light and airy fabric. And I was extremely happy with this one. Also made this one, so the gray one was made also to 10 inches, but it's stretched and it's more like 11 inches at this point. And this one I also made to 10 inches. However, it has since shrunk quite a bit. And as you'll see in this video, I tend to wear it with my black dress, actually a lot, because it's shrunk to the point where it's just actually really, really flattering to wear with this dress. I don't wear most of the Ranunculus sweaters that I have with that black dress. I'll usually wear them with a long sort of blousy tunic and some pants or a skirt or something like that. But this one I really, really enjoy wearing with my dress. I wouldn't wear this with a t-shirt and jeans, for example, because I just find it a little too short for my shape. And it's really strange, and when you feel it, it feels like it has shrunk. So it became a much, much sort of more fitted sweater, which was not the original intention. And I don't really know why it has shrunk because I've always washed this by hand. So there's something strange. And not only that, I've made this same sweater for my mother-in-law with the same yarn, and hers has not shrunk. So I'm sort of perplexed as to what has happened here. She's going to be visiting in a couple of weeks, and I'm sure she'll bring her ranunculus. I'm quite sure she will. And so I'm going to have a look at hers and see what has happened to it. But the last we had spoken, she had not had the same experience as I have had, where it's just kind of like come in. I still have more of this yarn, so I'm gonna have to take that into account the next time I use it. But I still wear this one a lot because it looks really, really nice with that dress. I've also worn it with high-waisted, sort of more loose pants and high-waisted skirts. So it's been quite handy that way. This one I made originally to 10 inches, as I said, and I also, instead of doing an I-cord, I did the same decreases all around as I had done in the other ones, but I added ribbing. And generally, I will add the same amount of ribbing in the sleeve as I do in the bottom of the sweater for long sleeve sweaters. I tend to have a little bit of a formula in that I'll try and match, if it's a long sleeve sweater, I'll try and match the sleeve ribbing and the bottom ribbing the same. And if it's a short sleeve sweater, I'll try and match the ribbing from the neck and sleeve. That's just something that I tend to do. I don't know that there's any, tradition around that. So that is Ranunculus number 3. Ranunculus number 4, I wanted a nice foresty, olivey kind of green one. And so I made this one out of a non-superwash yarn, Emilia et Philomene, a Josephine base. And I used Isagur silk mohair in an olivey green color. And as you can see in the video, this one, I think I turned out a little bit, this one came out at 9 inches. I made it a little bit shorter, and I'm not even 100% sure why I did that. I might have been a little bit worried about running out of yarn. I'm not quite sure, but it is a nice fitting sweater as well. I've worn this one a little bit less than the others. And I think partly that is to do with the fact that it is more opaque and more woolly, so it's really a warmer sweater. And one of the things I like about the Ranunculus is the light and airy nature of it. So this one I have found to be a little bit less wearable in some ways, because I could easily just wear this with a bra and nothing else. Which is fine and it's lovely, but it just hasn't served the same purpose as the other Ranunculus sweaters have. Sometimes I really like the light and airy nature because I have a tendency to overheat sometimes, and that just, keeps things kind of warm but still airy. Now this one, as always, I've cast it on the 60 stitches, but this one ended up with a more closed neck. The whole thing is less airy. The whole thing is more held in. And I think that's in great part to the non-superwash yarn that I used. It took up more space than a superwash fingering would, even though it was also a fingering weight yarn. And with the mohair, it just really filled that in. So if you want to have a more woolly version, using a non-superwash yarn is definitely the way to do it. And yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful color. I really love. I think one of the things about the Ranunculus too is that it's a little bit of a palette cleanser for me. It's sort of like, what should I knit? Oh, I had bought yarn for a Ranunculus, and I'll just knit a Ranunculus sort of in between things, right? Because I've knit so many of them, and they're a joy to knit. The yoke is really fun, and then you just have a few raglan increases, and then you're just doing stockinette knitting, and it's just easy peasy. So it's just been a joy, and just such a great palette cleanser. So anyway, on to number 5. So after making a forest green one, I decided that I wanted a red one for Christmas. But it took me a while to find the right red. Reds are difficult to get on screen, so let's see what happens here. But as you can see, I made myself a very gauzy red Ranunculus for the Christmas season. And I wore it with a black camisole and a black skirt. with the ranunculus over for the Christmas that I made it, which was Christmas 2022, so 2 years ago. I was looking for the red. It comes out a little bit more cherry on film. It's hard to capture. I think you can see that it's a little bit more of a deeper red when it's further away. It seems to come out more cherry here. It was during the pandemic, and I ordered some reds and thinking that they were going to be the right color, and then they arrived and they were never the right color, the right kind of red. But then one day when I was able to go to a yarn shop, I was at Wool Time and I was in the discount center, and suddenly I looked down and there were 2 balls of drops lace, which I can't remember the composition of. I'll put it down here. But I thought, this is exactly what I want. It was the right kind of red. I had already gotten the mohair, which was a biche silk mohair. And so I was able to start making this one. And I followed the pattern as usual. And I did the I-cord finish on the sleeves as usual, back to the I-cord. It is very pretty to have that. I also really do like the ribbing, but I feel like it depends on the sweater. Sometimes I want the I-cord, sometimes I want the ribbing. So this is the lovely Christmas red one. I wore it a lot over 2023 for sure. I took it to Europe when I went there last year and wore it a lot, and it's just a lovely light layering piece and quite festive and very elegant once you have, you know, a camisole underneath and so forth. It's really nice. I also have that black blouse I mentioned earlier that's got polka dots, and I've worn it with that as well. 2023 also saw me make this particular version here. I received this beautiful linen from Smita of Your Next Knit. This is the BC Garn Lino, I believe it's called. It's a 100% linen. And I actually made this one using 5.5 millimeter needles. And as you see in the video, I did a split hem on this one in the ribbing. Basically just knitting, splitting and knitting the front stitches, doing the ribbing, and then moving on to the back. And I made this one with short sleeves, and it's incredibly gauzy, this one. So I, you know, wear it. I've worn it over a dress. I've worn it with a white camisole, this one, or another one I have that's in the picture actually, or in the video, and white pants or a white skirt. I've worn this one, I would say a little bit less, just because it has to be worn kind of, I feel like, in a little bit of a particular way. But it's really quite wonderful. And when we're having really hot weather, this is a useful one to have, to just put on top of something else really light. Ta-da! Here I am again. I wanted to put this one on because this one I made, and you'll see me wearing it in the videos as well, using no short rows in the front. So it goes right into the detail in the yoke. I wanted to try this out because I had heard somebody talking about it, about not doing short rows in the front. So I wanted to give it a try. And I do like the way it goes right into the stitching or the stitch pattern here. And it does fit quite nicely. It would have gone up just a little bit had it had the short row shaping. But you know, I mean, it makes a slight difference, but not a huge difference. There's more short row shaping in the back than in the front. But this one I made expecting it to be kind of more of a vest. It ended up being a little bit shorter than I expected. In fact, it is 8 inches because I ran out of yarn. I ran out of the mohair. And the mohair I bought in Barcelona at Barcelona Knits. And although the dyer had more, it was going to cost a ridiculous amount to send some over. So I just finished the body and I thought, let's see what happens. A few things that are different about this one, in addition to the fact that I did not do the short row shaping in the front, I made this one into a size 1 because I could tell that it was going to be quite wide, and I was a little bit worried about not having enough of the mohair. and I was right about that. So I saved, I think I might have gone and done the ribbing here and then just knit to the end of the body and when I ran out. And I decided to just leave it the way it is. I did find a commercial brand of mohair that was pretty close to the original one that I had gotten. And I thought, you know, if I want to lengthen this, I can just use it in like the ribbing that I have here now would become stockinette, and then I could use the commercial yarn for the ribbing, and it would probably be very, very similar, make very minor difference. But I've actually enjoyed wearing this as it is. I have worn it over the dress. I have worn it over kind of a more flowy tunic. When I first finished this, I posted a picture of my wearing a more crisp blouse, and I don't think that that was the best look. I'll put a picture from my project page here so that you can see it. I felt like it was a little bit crisp, but it looks quite nice with the tunic, and I really do like it with my black dress as a more relaxed look. So just to recap on the yarns that I used, because I don't think I've mentioned that yet, the mohair was from Barcelona by Seven Oczek, a Polish dyer, and the other yarn was by Casasol, which I bought in Madrid on the same trip, and it is a cobweb cotton. So I ended up using 2 strands of the cotton and 2 strands of the mohair. So it is a little bit transparent, but not as much as the other ones per se. And I think that I ended up making it ended up with a little bit of a larger gauge. So it ended up with the same ease as my larger ones do. So I could tell that was happening. So I just did the raglan increases for size 1. And you can see that it's quite short there. Because I wanted it to be as narrow as possible. So yeah, that is this one. And I have my last one on the needles. And what I'm going to do is try it on for you and show you where I'm at with this. I'll be back. So here I am with my most recent version, not quite finished yet. First, let's talk about the yarns. This one is made using Tunlina by Sadness Garn, which is a linen viscose, was it linen viscose cotton? So much more of a plant fiber kind of yarn, summery yarn. And I thought that would be nice to create a light version for a cool summer night or another time of the year. And then the Biche Bush silk mohair, I think this was like pale peach, very pale peach, something like that. And it created this beautiful, beautiful color. So this one is turning out quite nicely. It's all wrinkled because it's been in my bag, and this has to get sewn in or cut because I actually did a magic knot here, I think. So I have to figure all of that out. But I am stuck on the sleeves. So I decided to try a ribbing, and I decided to try an I-cord. And funnily, I actually prefer the I-cord, but I forgot to do all the decreases that I would normally do. So I've ended up with this bell sleeve. But I think I have decided that I like the I-cord feeling to this one rather than the ribbing. So I've been in this weird quandary because I'm like, do I go back and do I do this? Which one do I do? So it's funny because I was showing it to some friends and they all agreed that the I-cord was kind of nice. And I think I like the I-cord with this particular one. Also, this one is not that different. It's not that different from this version. This is more yellowy and this has got a bit more of a pinkiness to it. But because this has shrunk, you know, I'm expecting this to be a very different kind of wear. And this one's got the ribbing. So I thought, you know what, I think I will do the I-cord with this one. So you will see this one next time as a complete object, but it's just to show you that you can make decisions along the way. Somebody was like, so are you really going to rip that back and do it? I'm like, yeah, you know, I mean, it's not that much time. And this one I'm going to have to fix and do the decreases and then do the I-cord. I don't know what I was thinking because I just kind of did the I-cord and didn't even think about decreasing stitches. And then after I'm like, why doesn't this look right? And it was because I'd forgotten to do the decreases. So this has just got that little bit of detail left, and then it'll be finished. So this will be a second one for 2024, and I think that'll probably be it for this year. But as I said, I do have thoughts of a woolly one. So I'm thinking about that. But I have so many plans at the moment for knitting that I'm not sure if I'll make that one right away. But it is a really wonderful exploration in using different yarns to create very different outcomes. I mean, they're all the same sweater, but they have different looks and can serve different purposes. And, well, I do like the ranunculus. I wouldn't say that I don't like choosing favorites, but it is a really easy wear one. I haven't made a dress yet out of it. That could happen, we'll see. But I do really enjoy it as a layering piece sweater to just add that little bit of warmth or that little bit of something to whatever I'm wearing. So there you go, friends. That is it for today. I will be back next time with my regular episode with my finished objects. This one will be one, and possibly another one, we'll see. And as well as all my works in progress and some of the quilting that I'm currently doing that I'm quite obsessed about. And so we'll see you very soon with all of that. Take care until then. Thank you.